It's no news that many animals in Africa are threatened with extinction. No news either that quite a few people are doing their best to save them. But the process is much more complicated and controversial than simply catching a rare creature and letting it go again in the safety of a reserve, as one would-be rescuer is discovering here in the wilds of northern Kenya. This is a government anti-poaching patrol. Chief among the creatures it's trying to protect is the largest and most handsome of Africa's wild zebras, Grevy zebra. It was once abundant. Now it's gone from Somalia. Only a few are left in battle-torn Ethiopia. And here in Kenya, the last place where it survives in any numbers, it's being butchered by poachers. The Grevy's skin is spectacularly handsome, and it's quite legal to sell it in London. £600 is the price for this one, though the Knightsbridge store that's asking that prefers to remain anonymous. In Nairobi, the Kenyan government has banned all kinds of hunting. But that, of course, makes little difference to poachers who operate outside the law anyway. They still shoot anything that moves and then dispose of it as best they can, if not for curios, then just for meat. The scale of their operations is gigantic. Selling ivory is now illegal, but that means that it fetches even higher prices in the Far East if it can be smuggled out there. These are the horns of Big-Bit, a small antelope. Not much use to anyone, you might think, except as a trivial souvenir or as medicine for the superstitious. But 15,000 animals were killed to produce this dismal pile. Grevy's zebra, made fatally valuable by its skin, has been getting rarer and rarer at an alarming rate. 2 years ago, it was said that only 1,000 were left in the whole of Kenya. One man, an American, decided to do something about it by moving some to the safety of the national park.
My name's Don Hunt. I'm a game trapper. And I've lived here in East Africa for 14 years. Batian is one of our little orphans.
He and Iris Breidenbend live near Mount Kenya and run a game ranch which they used in the past as a holding station for the business exporting animals to zoos.
And what we're trying to do is to establish nucleus breeding groups of various species of animals. And what we're working on right now is a Grevy zebra rescue operation. And we're sort of battling the clock with this Grevy zebra operation because there isn't much time left.
So Don began safaris like this one. It begins a couple of hours before dawn so that he and his staff can be on the catching ground while it's still cool. His base camp is actually within the Samburu Game Reserve. Back in 1976, he and some park wardens agreed that he should catch these threatened grevies in the country farther north, where they're poorly protected, and bring them down to the safety of the reserves. He would pay for the entire operation himself, but in return he would be given 3 official permits to catch the other commoner animals on which his business is based. The lorry carrying the animal crates has left first. It will wait at a rendezvous for the others to catch up. Don drives the catching vehicle in front. Iris drives the support truck. She has to keep up as best she can and be on the spot as soon as a zebra is caught, with extra men to help the catching crew. But first they must find the zebras, and to locate them today they have the help of a helicopter. The pilot is Ted Goss, Senior Warden of Tsavo West National Park, which will receive most of the captured Grevy. Chasing an animal like this obviously strains it severely. So the team has a self-imposed rule that if they can't catch an animal within 3 minutes of beginning the chase, they must let it go. And time's up. After a brief search, Ted Goss locates some more Grevies and guides Don to them. It's a stallion, and even when lassoed, he's very formidable and difficult to deal with. He's huge, and he's got very powerful hind legs and strong teeth. Don prefers this method of catching with a noose to using tranquilizer darts. He says that even if the dart is on target, you may still lose the zebra before the drug takes effect. Within minutes, the stallion gets a worm medicine and 4 injections. The first is a tranquilizer to quieten him down. The second, cortisone to guard against the effects of stress. But as this lowers the zebra's resistance to infection, he also gets a long-acting penicillin dose. And finally, a vitamin preparation. Inevitably, the process of capture is a severe shock to an animal that minutes ago was running wild and free. Back at the base camp in the reserve, the captured zebras are kept in pens called bomas. They will spend 6 weeks here, during which time they're watched closely for any ailments and slowly conditioned to eating special food.
The food is a high-protein mixture that we train the zebra onto, and it contains oats, calf weaning pellets, ranch cubes, and bran. When we catch a zebra, the condition goes down, way down for a couple of weeks. So we have to use this food to bring the condition up. After 3 weeks, we use this worm medicine to get rid of a very nasty internal parasite called bot. Then at 3 weeks again, which is what we're doing today, we deworm them again with the medicine to get rid of bot.
Each zebra costs John about £500 out of his own pocket to catch and care for. That expense is offset by the income he gets from exporting animals at the request of the Kenyan government to restock national parks in Nigeria and Ghana. It's astonishing how soon the zebra recover from the violent handling during their capture and settle down. In the past, many of Don's animals went to zoos, and it's been his habit to train them to accept their future surroundings by playing cassettes for an hour each day of the sound of trains, aeroplanes, crowds, even music. But the zebras will be going to reserves to be released as wild animals. So this seems an unnecessary hardship for these creatures to have to endure. They have particularly sensitive hearing, coming as they do from empty desert country. With the coming of dusk, the smell of the captured zebras lures predators, such as lions, towards the camp. To keep them at a safe distance, a fire is kept burning throughout the night, and thorn bush branches are piled up into barriers around the bomas. But hungry lions are difficult to discourage. After 6 weeks, 2 stallions are ready to be released into the surrounding Samburu Reserve. But they've now become so tame and so accustomed to their bomas that a great deal of persuasion is needed to induce them to leave. Suspicious and frightened, this one prefers the safety of the home that he's come to know.
Come on, yeah. How you doing? Not the problem. What's up? Hold on. Come on. Yeah.
But at last, he does make for freedom. The agreement with the authorities is that 30 of the zebras John has caught should be released here in the Samburu Reserve. But the reserve is a small one and unfenced. Being migratory animals, they're almost certain to wander back to the plains outside the reserve where they were caught. No one monitors their movements, so there's no way at the moment of knowing what does happen to them. In the nearby shanty town of Isiolo, there are plenty of people waiting for them. This is a poor area where people have to work very hard just to scrape a living. It's hardly surprising that some of them take to poaching. Men from the city arrive in expensive cars and engage the locals to act as porters, tappers, and skinners. Many a poaching campaign has been planned in the back room of this bar. The men of the Isiolo anti-poaching unit also have to face another kind of poacher, the most dangerous, the so-called shifters. Shifters are well-organized, heavily armed gangs of Somalis. What began as a political movement soon turned to straightforward and wholesale poaching, killing practically everything that moved and murdering those who threatened their trade. This is a reconstruction, but for the real thing, these patrolmen have orders to kill if necessary. Because poaching was so intense and animals being slaughtered on such a huge scale, the Kenyan government have this year reinforced their ban on hunting by making it illegal to sell game trophies. And last January, curio dealers were given until March the 12th to dispose of their stocks. This should be good news for all Kenya's wildlife. But has it come too late for Grevy's zebra? Many of them have moved from the wild country, where they were harried by poachers, to private land on the slopes of Mount Kenya, a habitat that is really alien to them. And here they formed a herd of 100 each way. Up here they have for companions creatures they seldom see normally, giraffes. They have to share this pasture with their broader striped relative, Burchell's zebra, which is still fortunately abundant. The animals are so different that they don't interbreed. Grevies have been known to science for less than a century. They're named after a president of France, Jules Grevy, who was given one by the Emperor of Abyssinia in 1882. Normally, they live in semi-desert. The breeding stallions are solitary, ruling unusually large territories of about 10 square kilometers, which they mark out with regularly renewed piles of dung. The Grevy herds consist of males and foals and adolescent or non-breeding males. These males often indulge in a bit of fighting or mock mating between themselves. They don't, however, actually mate with any of the mares in the herd. Only the territorial stallions do that when the mares visit them during the wet season. When the rains do come, the herds begin to move along their seasonal migration routes. The sprouting grass draws the herds out onto the open plain, and so now is a good time to estimate their numbers with an aerial survey. An observer counts the number of animals he sees between two rods attached to the struts on each side of the aircraft, which flies along straight lines at fixed height. That number is then multiplied to give an estimate of the total population.
We'll be starting sample unit Bravo Junior, line number 2, subunit 4/3, going east, starting now.
This count gave the surprisingly high figure of 13,000. So the surveyors themselves say that the margin of error in aerial sampling is such that the true figure could be as low as 7,000. But even that is 7 times the figure accepted when Don started his operations. So does that mean that there is really no need for the rescue so expensive and cash and so wearing on the animals themselves? While experts debate the point, Don continues doggedly on. Another shipment of Grevies is to be moved, this time 400 miles to Tsavo in southern Canada. These animals, at least, should stand a better chance of survival than those that were released in Tamburu. The advantage of sending the zebras to Tsavo West is that the park is huge, 4,000 square miles bordering Tanzania. That surely should contain even the migratory Grevy. But even here, there are further arguments. Tsavo East, the next-door park, is even bigger. And what is more, 14 years ago, a small group of Grevies were released there. Some say it would have been wiser to send this patch to reinforce them rather than try to start a new group here in Tsavo West. These long journeys are very hard on the zebras. On previous trips, 2 died and 7 mares aborted. Now, many have serious bruises and grazes. All are bewildered and badly stressed. But will all their suffering and all the labor put in by Don and his team really result in a new breeding herd in Tsavo West? The fact is that no one knows, or is likely to, for some years to come, because, for one reason or another, no one is keeping a close check on the animals after their release to see how they take to their new surroundings or what policy should guide further instruction. Meanwhile, the catching goes on.
Sanduku mara moja.
Critics of this operation say that it was started because of the alarming estimate of the Grevy population, which now, it seems, was far too low. That because of understandable local pride in northern Kenya, many of those that are caught are being released in reserve that is far too small to hold them, and that even when the animals get to southern Kenya, there is no certainty that they will be able to establish themselves in a country that is so different from their normal habitat. Don's view is that while experts argue, he at least is doing something. One fact, however, is sadly only too clear. Whatever the motives of those involved, whether they are poaching or trying to conserve it, one creature seems doomed to get a brutal battering at the hands of man. This beautiful creature, Grevy's zebra.